Hey, you're right. You found it. This is the spot to be. It's the off night. That's right, folks. We found the off night again. We've been out there for so long, just dangling, twisting in the wind. But now we realize we have an audience. I don't know how many, but there's an audience out there and they're listening. And I want to appreciate you guys for actually paying attention to what's going on here. You know, this is basically what old men going off to sea. That's basically what this is about, okay? But we got stories to tell. That's what we have, stories. And you know what? This is the off night, folks. And my voice is cracking. I'm beginning to sound like a world alone. That's right, folks. A world alone. In a world that doesn't know what's going on. You have three old men telling you how to work your lives. Okay. But one of the old men is Mr. Mark Sweetman, who is your host. Please welcome Mark Sweetman.
Hey, I'm here. And of course, my lovely wife Susan is with us. She'll have her, there she is, we'll have our weekly poem. Let's get Andy back. Let me get out of here. Let me get Andy back in here.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll take the music down. That's the best that's worked so far since I discovered the duty free. What do you call it? Royalty free. Since I discovered that royalty free music, that's the first time I've actually gotten that to work. I don't have my green screen up, so you get to see my I guess I'll call it
actual home. There we go.
Yeah, my library. I guess I'll call
that's it right. That. The library in the back.
There's some books. There's some books there. Over there is some of my. Well, actually, there's my pilot's license and one of my old posters from. I'm a
boat captain.
I'm a boat captain. I'm a licensed boat captain.
You're a licensed boat captain.
Yeah, and an old poster from a show I did pre-pandemic. And what's that? Oh, and from Mayor O'Reilly in Dearborn gave me this plaque for a show I did again pre-pandemic.
Nice.
It was a diversity show. I got asked to speak because we have a diverse household, you know.
Nice.
My late parents.
Oh yeah, and then anyway, this the type of stuff you'd expect to see in an office, but it's actually in our dining room.
Eeyore says hello.
Eeyore right here.
We have 8 children. Here's
Grogu's around here too somewhere.
I mean, I'm like some sort of Twilight Zone. What is that? What are those kind of like? You know, hipster sort of like the head.
Yes, you look like you look like what was that song that Queen did where they had just the 4 heads? They were in black suits and they had do you remember that song?
No, I don't, man.
Was it We Are the Champions? I'll have to find it. They did
We Are the Champions?
Yeah, we're talking about back in the 80s when MTV
it's like some sci-fi head thing going on. I can't remember. There's a movie that had like nothing but heads.
Nothing but heads? Yeah. I believe it. That's also
the Night Gallery scene.
That's also a porn title, Nothing But Head.
Nothing but heads. There we go. It's a porn title. Yes, that's right. That's actually that was like in the video watch store. You had that curtain pulled back. You know, there was like titles like Bright Lights Big City. You go back through that door to the porn thing. It was Bright Lights Big Titties. You know.
Oh no.
There is no end to the creativity when it comes to parody porn titles out of
Who framed Roger Rabbit? Who reamed Roger Rabbit? You know, there we go. I mean, it was like you just went back there to laugh at the titles. That's all you needed, you know.
Yeah. All right, are you ready for? Oh, you know what?
How about some real art?
Oh, we got the poem coming.
Yeah, well, let's whip that out. Speaking of porn titles.
Oh, there we go. Let's whip that out. Okay, all right.
While she's going, what's wrong?
We're on the air.
We're on the air. You want to say hi to the audience? Our daughter just walked into the studio.
Now, folks, a daughter of the famous Mark Sweetman walked into the studio. She wants to say hello. Is that right?
Hello, Lillian.
Hello, Lillian. Saying hello to the folks in the audience. There you go. I frightened her away. I just have a dismembered head somewhere in the dangling around.
She's 16. We're next to the kitchen. So I think she's getting something to eat.
Yes, eating is more important than talking to us.
She brought her dishes down from her bedroom. Yay!
Ooh.
Okay. Here's
All right, let's go.
today's poem, and then Mark's probably going to have me do last year's poem. So we have a
we've
year
been-
in review.
We've been doing it so far. And
Do we have a Van Gogh reference in the poem?
What?
Why? What happened? Oh, you mean the stolen Van Gogh down at the DIA?
Yeah. Do we have a Van Gogh reference in the poem?
No, but you know
Not
what?
today.
Why don't I make a note of it and we'll talk about it?
Okay.
we can talk about it. All right. So, as usual, Mark did not give me headlines. So these are the ones I pulled. Okay. 12 people injured in Baton Rouge nightclub. Gunman shot up the Louisiana pub. Lunar New Year in California starts dark due to a mass shooting in Monterey Park. High economic prospects expected in Nigeria. Temperatures minus 80 in Yakutsk, Siberia. House of Rep Santos said he only padded his resume. Maybe he married Morgan Freechild. Ask Lovitz today. Buzz Aldrin got married. He's age 93. She's 30 years younger and has her own PhD. More classified docs in Biden's Wilmington home. And that's a good way to end this off-night poem.
Very good. Very good. Now you want to read last year's, and we can
Okay.
let's see how we've come in the last year.
Okay, so this one was from the 24th of January, 2022. The Omicron virus is still around. Evacuate Ukraine decision is sound. Russia is setting up on the border. Attack may happen when soldiers are given the order. Heidelberg University gunman dead. Germany grieves one student died, it said. 3 more were wounded in the lecture hall. Gun violence is worse than having a brawl. Cruise ship didn't pay over $4 million for fuel. Crystal Symphony captain is a real tool. U.S. judge ruled we could seize the ship. To the Bahamas, passengers got an extra day trip.
And that's what was happening a year ago. Interesting.
Wow.
A lot of gunmen. Wow.
Interesting that
Constantly.
they have a shooting in a school in a university in Germany, and they're probably still talking about that shooting. Meanwhile, we've had about a dozen other school shootings in the
Way
US.
too many.
Yeah.
So
The Chinese holiday too.
yeah, the news changes every year, and it's still the same.
Yeah. You've lived in Los Angeles, and we lived in Los Angeles. So when they said Monterey Park, we already knew it was an Asian community, but that had to be explained to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'll give the show back to Mark.
Oh.
Did you want to update your?
Yes,
little thing?
I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Well, there was a robbery at the Louvre, though. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear
No,
about
there's
that.
No, you're talking.
Apparently there was an Amazon driver out front, and he was arrested.
That's funny.
And apparently they basically said that he had gotten all types of paintings in there. He had all these different types of painters, Degas,
Uh-huh.
Da Vinci. He had Van Gogh, but he didn't get he was arrested because he didn't get any Monet, because you need Monet to get the Van to go.
You need Monet.
Yeah.
Get the van to go.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's pretty bad.
I don't know. It's a great dad joke,
Oh yeah. There are some good dad jokes. It'd be interesting if somebody came around and did the old.
Do you remember Gary George?
Yes,
I think he just does nothing but dad jokes.
I think you're right.
I think it's like, because I just recently saw one of his bits. He was talking about taking the kids out to do a ball game. So he basically said, I take the kids to the Dairy Queen. After they win. I take them to the Dairy Queen after they lose. Was it after they lose? I don't buy them the ice cream.
That's right.
He said, you watch the other team eat their Dairy Queen. It's like kid drops some ice cream thing on the floor. Says, Bobby, if you had picked up your ball, if you had gotten the ball, when it was hit to you, you'd be having that ice cream on the floor too. There we go.
That's right. He also does that other bit where he talks about sushi, and about how he says the waiter goes, "Would you like anything else?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know, maybe a grill to cook this on." And
Yeah.
how about the appetite of a hippopotamus?
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat
Well, he was
something.
the first guy I heard do the bit about, I went to my GED reunion.
class reunion. Yeah, that's a funny bit. That is a very. We're talking about Gary George. Ned, do you know Gary?
Oh, I don't know Gary. No.
Oh my God, he's just classic. He's great.
It's so fun. He only works the Castle and the Ann Arbor Showcase. He lives, in, you know what I mean. He lives in West Bloomfield, and could have back in the 80s and 90s. Could have toured. I mean, he has the material. It's great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He sells it to a lot of headliners that come through. I think that's basically what he does. He works like three or four times a year at the Castle as the middle act, and then, I mean, it's just such great stuff that everybody go, "I'll buy that, I'll buy that, I'll buy that," and he doesn't care. You know, he'll just write something new because he's writing all the time.
I don't know.
Is he a copyright guy or something like that?
Yes, he is, and his wife is also. They like my wife and I. We all met at Wayne State when I was writing for Dick Purton. We used to get together, Jim McLean, Gary George, and Kevin Kramus. We used to get together at my kitchen table, and we had a little group. We never incorporated or anything, but we called it 4 Men and a Notepad, which is kind of a take up on the 2 Men in a Truck type of thing, but it was 4 Men and a Notepad. And we wrote a lot of stuff that we were able to sell. And the guy, you remember Gary, the guy who booked Clem's Poorhouse.
No, not that one.
Good friend of Geechee guys. Oh, what's his name? Anyway, he used to have a fax machine, which to us was high tech. We'd type stuff up and send it over to him, and he would fax the stuff to radio DJs. He had a little service that these jokes would go out, these topical jokes, and we'd be up after our shows. You know, it wasn't uncommon for us to go from midnight to 4 a.m. And guess who needs the jokes at 4 a.m? The radio DJs, right?
DJs, yeah.
Gary Tyson. Do you know Gary Tyson? That's
Gary Tyson. Yeah, yep.
Gary Tyson had that. He was the first guy that came along with, hey, now that the DJs get fax machine, and he would buy the guy's fax machines if they'd buy his newsletter. You know, this daily one-liner newsletter.
Oh, got it.
So we did a lot of work for him. That's got to be back in the 90s. We did that kind of crap. But that was fun. Dick Purton's still kicking. I still see him every once in a while.
He's not on the air anymore.
No, he hasn't been on the air in 20 years. But I used to write for him back. I used to write for him back in the 90s, and that was a lot of
amazing.
Fun. He was amazing, and I tell you what, I worked for him and J.P. McCarthy, and between the two of them, it was like writing for both of them, because they all had old time studios with an audience, like a seats for an audience. Like
I went to see a J.P. McCarthy show once. There was like 12 of us sitting there. It was hilarious.
What year did you see? What year?
Oh gosh, that would have been. I'll
tell you if I was there or not.
Late 70s, maybe.
Ooh,
whoa!
I was there in.
The show I saw, the guest was Michael Cole from Mod Squad.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
He was
I
good.
tell you what, it was in that studio. You're right. It was about 12 seats. If we had Aretha Franklin one time, we got it up to about 36 seats. You know, because the space was big enough. It's just you didn't have 36 seats if there weren't 36 people going to be there. But and she came in. She goes, "Oh, I didn't know you're going to have an audience." You know, I thought this was radio, and we're like, "This is studio. This is WJR Studio A. This recording studio has been around since 1919, you know."
Well, that's how radio shows were always done.
That is how they were done. Oh man, it was an internship my senior year at Wayne State with Hal Youngblood, who was a playwright and JP's executive producer. Yep. That turned into a paid internship that paid into a regular bit, because JP at the end there, you know, when he started, he read the books, but he didn't want to read the books. You know, he just, you know, he wanted to play golf, and, you know, he recorded a shitload of commercials. He was, when I was working there, he was both with Dodge, Chrysler, who had different ad agencies, by the way. It wasn't just the Chrysler. They eventually merged all that advertising stuff, and Chevy. And he did all those ads, some of them national, some locally. He did a lot of out of town and national stuff. And so he wasn't reading the books of his guests anymore. So I got to read the books and give him the 1-page summary and the, I give him a 1-page summary of the book and then about 5 questions for him to ask. And that's all he really needed. Once he got on with the first, if he liked the guy, he would find other things about the guest that he would find interesting and talk about. And if he didn't like the guy, he was never going to get to the 5th question anyway. But that was, that old studio, and they had a great record library. I got to hang out with Gene Elsey and Mike Wharf and
Mike Wharf. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And Mike, it was so funny too, because I had bought one of his tapes on Walden Pond about Thoreau. And I used this for an oral report I did on Civil Disobedience by Thoreau. And so I brought the paper in that I kind of hid that I only got a B on it. And he signed that, and he signed the cassette tape that I had bought from his company. Because that was a great thing about those days too, was they weren't employees of the station. They were vendors. They supplied the show. So Jimmy Lawrence and Warren Pierce and Mike Wharf and Jay Roberts, Night Flight 760 WTR.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, and so they weren't necessarily employees. The news guys were employees, and the announcers were employees. The engineers were employees. The talent, they got to take their stuff and they sold their show to the station. But all that stuff, Mike made money off of his tapes, and Gene Elsey did lecture circuit. He was actually a professor at Wayne State too, and just a very interesting 3 years I spent there.
Oh, that's been great.
I was there from. I was there 81, 82, and 83. And then, the best thing about it, I got to meet Sid Caesar.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And I got JP to take Sid out to, I said, I'm working the Comedy Castle tonight. And so JP goes, I'll bring Sid out there. And I go, so I call up Ridley. I go, you got to put me on. I just told him I'm doing the show. You get Sid Caesar coming. That's back when the Comedy Castle was still in a basement,
Yeah.
Right. At the Spaghetti Factory?
No, this was way back this was the place that this would have been John Laffrey's restaurant on Woodward at 14 Mile.
Okay.
John Laffrey had the first floor and he had a basement in it, and Ridley basically put his show in there. Ridley, that's pretty much how he started. He really didn't have his own room until the Spaghetti Factory. All those other places before that, they had a banquet room, or in this case, John Laffrey had a basement that had a bar in it, and then they would have private parties and stuff like that. Kind of like Big Tommy's. Have you been to Big Tommy's before?
Yes.
Same kind of deal where they're in the basement. They got a bar down there and everything. Anyway, and he would just go in and say, all right, you're going to make drinks that you wouldn't sell normally, and I'm going to take the cover. And he paid all his comics out of the cover. And, that's why we didn't see, you'd see big people when they came through once, but it wasn't until he got this room in Royal Oak that he was able to bring back people again for the money they were now commanding, because they had television and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we got to work with Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld and all those guys, and they were coming through working basement rooms, back when they were starting. Oh.
Yeah. Now, how did you get started in your deal? How did you get started in Los Angeles?
I started in New York.
I'm on my show.
Got my first writing job for MTV in New York.
What are you doing?
Oh, wow.
And then
ask Mom.
The way it worked was you'd get your start in New York, and then when you had a few credits, you'd go to LA because that's where all the work was.
Got it.
And a friend of mine went to work for Wayne Cotter at Comic Strip Live.
Oh, wow.
And Mike Rowe, Mark knows him.
Okay.
And
Mike Rowe?
That was enough to get me to LA, and then I just took it from there.
Got it.
Wayne Cotter. Now there's one guy that did keep coming back here. He didn't come to the castle, but that guy did at least one or two times a year at Ann Arbor. Remember Andy? Wayne Cotter. He did Comic Strip Live, but that was over at Laugh Factory, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like on that. Yeah.
Well, they started that at Igby's when they had John Mulrooney was the host.
That's right. That's right.
At
Yeah.
Igby's, and then they moved it. When they got Wayne to do it, they moved it over to the Laugh Factory.
Right.
I did it at Igby's, and I was scheduled to do it at the Laugh Factory, and I can't remember what what's his name? Tim Allen's manager, the New Jersey nightclub owner. That Rick Messina.
Yeah.
Rick Messina got me like a 3-show deal or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it meant he was going to manage me, and he was doing really well with Tim Allen and Drew Carey and what's her name?
Lineup.
Yeah, the alt comedy comic. What I can't think of her name now. Jeannie Garofalo.
Oh,
yeah.
Janine,
They had Garofalo. They had they had a good crew, and I thought I was gonna. It was weird. The people that were interested in me for that 2 years that I was hot out in LA, it was what could have been. But anyway, I'm happy with it. I could have had $8 million movie contracts, but I'd rather have 8 kids. I think.
Yeah, yeah. I'd rather have 8 kids, and
exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
They're all named 1 million. All 8 of them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Weird.
There's 1 million. There's 2 million. There we go. 500,000. The two of you together would make $1 million.
7. Go clean your room.
Well, I don't know if I told you guys this, but just before the pandemic, so like 2018 and 2019, Gary Hardwick had me out there pitching stuff, and I knew Gary had some. Do you guys know Gary Hardwick?
I know that name, but I can't remember if I know Gary or not.
Gary Hardwick started here in Detroit, Castle, Ann Arbor. All the clubs are still around, but he did. He was big in Windsor too, which was part of Detroit back before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And Holly, Flint, he did all the rooms, back in Steve Billnitzer and I figured out that back from about 1986 to about 93, a comic could work out of Detroit and make a living.
Yeah.
And make a better than working a day job type of thing.
Yeah.
Because we counted 19 rooms that paid you at least $500 for a weekend show. And and if 500 was your worst week, you were doing pretty well.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And so we worked off that. I can't remember what I was talking about now. I can't remember what.
But Gary,
Gary Hardwick. Gary Hardwick was in that group, and Gary did some stuff that was you today consider politically incorrect. It came from, he was from Highland Park, and he was, he made fun of the Chaldean party store owners and, and it just wouldn't, it's stuff that wouldn't fly today, but it was ethnic stuff. Yeah.
And, right.
And, it
doesn't exist anymore.
It really doesn't. But anyway, he moved on. He doesn't do stand-up anymore because he went out to LA and got a job with the same guy that Steve works for. Steve that does our shows at the Unclub. Stefan.
Okay.
The guy's name. He did talk shows. I hate that I can't remember names.
What was he, a producer?
No, he was a talk show host. And that's when I found out that those talk shows aren't exactly reality TV. Those are when you find out that Gary was writing for him, now the thing is scripted. What was his name? He has multiple sclerosis. And so he works a lot with the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation now because he's still able to.
Well,
he can't do a show. He can't do a show.
Oh, that
anymore.
Navy guy. It's the Navy guy.
The Navy guy. What's his name, Andy?
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, see, we're all old.
Wait,
I can remember the guy's. I can remember what he did.
Yep.
What he looked like.
Yep.
And it's like, but to give me the actual name? No way, man.
Navy guy.
He was. Yeah.
He's an African American guy. He's on during the day. He was like one of those, pep you up sort of characters, but he did interviews. He'd bring in young ladies and try and say, "You got to turn your life around."
Yeah. I know you.
He knows who
MS.
Yeah, he knows. He knows who we need too, but he can't remember his name either.
He's
Yeah,
bald.
he's bald. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you got it all. We got it
I
all.
know
We got it all.
exactly who you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for people who have been watching, call in, and if you can guess who the guy is, we'll give you a nice big pile of,
Hold
you
on,
know.
I got a graphic I can put up there. The people, here you go. You can put your comments in here. Just tell us who it is that we're
This is
talking
our
about.
game show. This is our game show. Guess who we can't remember. That's our game show now.
Oh, he has a very striking name, like a news anchor.
Yes. Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
I think he did news before he got this talk show.
But he was in the Navy. Then he got the talk show, and then he went to the whole thing. But it's like he's a.
I can almost say it, like Wesley something or.
Oh, you're getting so close.
Oh.
Montel Williams.
There we
Montel
go.
Williams.
Yes.
That's him. Yeah, I know.
All right.
Oh,
So
you get
Gary
the prize.
goes out-
You get the free pancakes. There you go.
He did
You
a
get the free
daytime.
pancakes.
He was
So
on.
Gary
daytime.
goes out to LA about the same time I did, like 85, 86 or something like that. And he gets
Right.
a job with Montel Williams, and that, pays his rent, gets his nut, keeps him out in LA. And he keeps submitting scripts. Eventually he got picked up and he did Mark Curry's show. Mark Curry's show was Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Yes.
And eventually he became showrunner for that. And that allowed him to submit scripts. And he had 3 hits: Brothers, light comedy about African-American brothers, Deliver Us from Eva.
Yep.
Oh, I remember that one.
With Gabrielle Union and LL Cool J. And,
Mm-hmm.
and the third one, again, the name escapes me, but Susan and I went out there and this is funny. Mark and Susan Sweetman and Gary and Susan Hardwick, we all went to see Randy Rainbow out there at the Orpheum Theater out in Los Angeles. We look like no other couple there. We were the only 2 non-gay couples there, and we were an integrated non-gay couple. So, but anyway, but we all love Randy Rainbow, and Gary and Susan don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. If they want to see a show, they want to see a show. Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so during that dinner and show, we had some discussions about some things. And he had put together, of course, he didn't own any of these films that he did before, but now, because it's been so long since Deliver Us from Eva, and it did so well, that he put a package together where he would basically be the owner, and he started pitching it. And he had to get 2 of the 3 stars. He had Gabrielle Union, D.L. Hughley, and LL Cool J.
Mm-hmm.
LL Cool J immediately said, "Can't do it. I'm stuck in whatever TV show he's doing for the last 20 years. He's still doing it."
He's on one of the CSI shows.
Yes. He goes, that's paying for my grandkids and great grandkids college. So I'm not leaving that show. And he had Gabrielle Union and he had D.L. Hughley. D.L. Hughley's easy to get. He's still doing morning news shows just to be on the air. But anyway, and he does. Yeah, I think he comes to Detroit 3 times a year, plays the casinos and stuff.
I bet he does well. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, but he had Gabrielle Union, but then she had that kerfuffle with the talent show, America's Got Talent, or whatever the one, or maybe it was the other one. Yeah, whatever the show that she was doing where she made a big deal about how she was discriminated against because she's the only black person on the panel, and she wasn't getting the respect and all that stuff. And so now all of his investors were going, maybe we're not going to back this anymore. And so then she dropped out. Now he only had 1 star, and so that's the last I heard of that. But in the meantime, while I'm pitching him ideas and stuff, and he had seen the guy. He's with the Free Press now, but he was with the News at the time. Neil Rubin. Columnist, kind of took over for Bob Talbert when Bob Talbert passed away.
Yes.
And Neil had called me way back when, I think Reagan was still in office, because he was always calling me for some quip. He goes, what do you got? Hey, what's going on? What are you thinking about Reagan? I said, it's just hard for me to believe he used to be a union guy, because he was breaking up the air flight. And so then I was always giving him lines that he says, I'll credit you. I go, that's fine. So it got me press in Detroit, which helped, in Detroit, what else was I going to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But he would always call me up. But then one time he calls me up, and I'm telling this story about how my wife and I met, and we had our anniversary coming up. And he goes, and then he found out that I had and he knew us before we had 8 kids, including the adopted kids. And then when he found out from other people, he calls me up. He goes, "You never told me you had black kids." I go, "I think the last time I talked to you, I didn't have any black kids." I go, I consider it a little bit of a disservice to not only my family, but the black community for a white guy to be going on, "Got black kids. Hey, everybody, got black
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
I said, even in my act, I talk about, I go, I have 8 kids. I talk about having 8 kids and do jokes about that before I get to the part that they're black, because I don't want that to distract from the fact that having 8 kids is an anomaly, you know, in our world, you know.
Don't say it all at once. Yeah,
exactly. So, anyway, so he writes this story about Susan and I, and it got picked. And now the Free Press is owned by Knight Ridder or Gannett or something like that. So,
yeah.
So it got picked up, and it was in the Gannett paper that was owned in all the cities. And I think Gary saw it in the Miami Herald or something like that, flying back from some shoot location or something like that. And he calls me up and he says, "Can I take this story and pitch it?" And I said, "Sure."
For sure.
And so, yeah, for network television show. Mm. And so I was flying out there for about pretty much all of some of 17, 18, and 19. And then, of course, the pandemic hit in 20, and all shit broke loose, you know.
Yeah.
But I could tell we were getting somewhere, because with each meeting I went to with them, the hallway was longer that we had to walk down in order to get to the office.
That's how you know.
That's how you know that you've made some progress.
That's so funny.
But it was, and it was so funny too, because Gary was like, "You're not in the union." He says, "So I'm gonna write the script. You're gonna have to trust me on this. Don't write anything." I go, I'm gonna get you, if anything, just with this, we'll try to get you on a writing crew somewhere, so that you can get in the union, or
then you can join the union. Yeah,
you can get in the Writers Guild, and then you'll be able to submit stuff. Like, all right, we'll go your way. But then the pandemic hit, and all kinds of crazy stuff happened, and they stopped having meetings, basically. I mean, they were looking at, they didn't know what they were going to do for a while, and Gary and I have talked about throwing other things together. In the meantime, he's also has 6 novels that have made money. I wouldn't call them, they're not New York Times bestsellers, but he does niche marketing. He does black urban characters who are crime fighters, not superheroes, but just, you know, cops with street smarts, or maybe detectives. So he's doing well on those, and he sold a bunch of those, and he's now discovered the Bollywood Indian market. And so as some of the stories that were, you know, you'd sell a development deal for something, and you might get $30,000 to $70,000 just not to take it to anybody else, but that doesn't include Bollywood.
No, it does not.
So he's discovered Bollywood as a place to go.
Well, do some of the stories translate to Bollywood, or would it be a whole new thing for him?
It would be a whole new thing for him, but I'm sure he would just get and a lot of these Bollywood people are in Hollywood now. He runs into them all the time. A lot of these writers, you know.
Yeah, might as well.
I think M. Night Shyamalan was from Bollywood originally.
Oh, I'm sure he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So how'd it go out at One Night Stands?
It went very well.
You know that lake that's across the street from there?
Yeah.
That's where I learned how to swim. That's the lake my grandmother lived on. My grandparents lived on.
You're kidding.
Oh, nope.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was like it was at the time, I mean, back in the 60s, it was not as built up as it is now. So that area was like a place where people went for the weekends from the city.
Waterford.
Yeah, Waterford. But my grandparents lived there. My dad grew up in Pontiac, but graduated from Waterford Township High School, which is where the Kroger where the Kroger is now, about 3 blocks from there. And Andy's back on. Let's see what happened to him. Anyway, and I again, I headlined a couple times there before the pandemic, but I just haven't gone back yet. I think what I'm going to do is, it's been so long since I've done my headline show, I think I'm probably going to get like about 6 or 7 middle act spots in before I start headlining again.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It is a long, that 45-minute, 60-minute show. If you haven't done it in 3 years, that's a long freaking time.
It's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes it'd be nice if you get to about the 25-minute mark and you just said, "Do we have a juggler?
Yeah.
Do we have a ventriloquist that can come out here right now and just?
That's why I want to get your own opener.
I want to sit down and have some tea. Maybe I'll enjoy the show a little bit.
You know who you want? You want that woman Skippy.
Oh.
Do you know what she does besides comedy?
What?
She's a fire eater.
Oh,
like
wow.
a circus.
Oh,
Swear to God, I've seen
wow.
pictures. She knows how to do that. I think that would break up a comedy show really nicely.
Oh, I tell you what, she's got enough material too. I might use her as an opening act. That'd be great.
I was wondering what would open mic be like at the Fire Eater Club? Like all these guys standing around with like things that burn and like, okay, you're next.
I got to tell
like the magic show though.
I'm gonna take a wild stab here, and I'm just gonna say, based on what I know about being in the business for 45 years, fire swallowers would not work as many free gigs as comics.
No way.
No. No chance.
They have some integrity.
Exactly. Yeah. And some medical expenses.
Yes. Oh, that's
it's like that freak show. The freak show. The guys put their nails to their face and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that for free,
No, I'm only doing one show tonight. Yeah, just one.
Yeah. I only have enough blood for one show. There we go.
Now when you were out in LA, did you run into any people from the Magic Castle?
Me?
Yeah.
Wayne Klein.
Oh yeah.
And Marvin Silbermans.
Okay.
Who loves magic. He was one of Jay's. They were both Jay's writers. And
Marvin
especially. Marvin loves magic.
Glenn Farrington's a writer, and he still works at do you know Glenn at all? He still works.
I've met him, yeah.
Yeah, but his last few shows have been dramas. He doesn't write comedy like he used to. And
really?
I think he did that Roswell. He was on that Roswell series about Area 51, and he's done. I think he did some stuff with the one where they sang.
Cop Rock?
No, not Cop Rock. The later one that was on NBC, where the father is an invalid, and he only communicates with his daughter while singing, and everybody has a song in that.
Oh, I missed that one. Jeez.
Yeah, I can't remember
that sounds like some good TV.
Yeah, and I've had Glenn on the show before, and I said I'd have him back. I got to have him back because he has got, for my money, the best Detroit comedy / the mob being in show business story I think I've ever heard.
I'd love to hear that.
Oh, because when I tell people, and the kids don't believe this, when we started in the late 70s, there was still some. Andy, when did you start? Were there still mob clubs?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like I started in North Dakota. There wasn't really mob clubs out there. There was the Norwegian mobs. They talked very slow, and there's a lot of lutefisk exchanges going on. But no,
it'd be a shame if something happened to your lutefisk.
Yeah, you say, you guys, you think you know what you're doing, do you? Yeah, we could come up and find. You may find yourself up to your neck in lutefisk. Yeah, you better watch yourself. You
dry your own fish.
That's right.
Gary and I have talked about doing a script about the crossover from the mafia organized crime in Detroit over to what is now sort of like the street gang organized crime.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really know how to handle drugs, and they were still trying to do numbers. They're trying to do numbers, and the state comes up with a lottery. God, that pissed them off, and then they tried to
marijuana's legal now.
Yeah, all these things were happening, and you just saw these guys who were just kind of like, oh man, it's like, oh, what's going to happen? One guy says to me one time, he goes, "What's going to happen next? These people are going to break their own fingers? What the hell?"
We'll have to run a comedy club. That's what we'll have to do.
We'll get into
a comedy club.
What happened was they got into strip clubs.
Oh, yeah.
Strip clubs could only go so far, and that's why you see so many on 8 Mile. They started moving out, they got to 8 Mile, and all the suburbs are going, you know.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of stuff along.
Well,
8 Mile.
was Chaplin's actually connected? I mean,
I didn't think they were. I thought they just acted the part, you know, to kind of like to intimidate the comics. But Glenn has the best story about being with the wise guys over at Chaplin's. But the story was always that they were connected.
Oh, get him on the show. I'd love to hear that.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to get him on the show. He'll do it. He had a great time the last time he was on.
I had a nice.
Well, the only reason I suspected Chaplin's is they always paid in cash. You know, it's like
and they took. How many doors did you have to go through to get paid? How many doors? How many? Didn't it
three or four?
Three or four doors, and one of them was lower that like you ducked under something in order to get paid. And then Billy would open up this box. Billy would open up this little box like he had a lemonade stand or something, like this little tin that he would open up, and then there'd just be wads of 20s in there, just and he would take one and he knew exactly how much was in each one, because he'd look at one and he'd grab it and he'd go, grab this one, and he'd take the rubber band, and all of a sudden he would just do like a flip, and all of a sudden it was on his wrist off of the roll. He'd peel off the $800 or $900. You know, here you go, count it. Yeah. You know,
well, I mean, strip clubs and comedy clubs, they all pay in cash, and you can move through, you can exchange money and stuff like that, just like they do in the casinos.
Yes, it was a great.
You can what do they call that? Wash money. You know,
it was a great place to launder money. It was it became famous as the place where Jeff Foxworthy created his. You might be a redneck. Yeah, because somebody said something to him about being from the South or something like that. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, we got no comedy clubs in bowling alleys. If your comedy club's in a bowling alley, you just might be a redneck. And everybody laughed at it. And that night he started the "You might be a redneck" bit that
that's great.
He always credited Chaplin's as the place to do it, because he never saw a comedy club in a bowling alley before.
But you get a tape at Chaplin's, you have your material, but you couldn't show it anywhere. Because that background, it looked like Hitler was looking at you over your shoulder.
Oh, yeah. They had a big. Did you ever work at Chaplin's, Ned, or did you ever see it?
No.
They had a giant, spooky, dark black, not even color. If it was color, it was very, very overwhelmed by the darkness of it. It was a dark, grayscale figurine of just a huge head of Adolf Hitler. So if you recorded your show,
it was
Chaplin, the mouth and the Hitler mustache on
exactly.
Comedy
club? It was Chaplin. It looked like Hitler was on your shoulder. You know, it's like,
God.
Yeah. I want to send this off to LA to get myself some work. Thanks. This is great. You know.
Oh, that is so bizarre.
Not only that, but the club, it was in a bowling alley. So the bowling alley was, and this was very common. The bowling alley had this place, and they had made it into a strip club. And they had two shows that were done there, local television. It was called La Notte, and they had a Denny Terrio type dance show, and there was another sort of talent competition, almost like they do with The Voice or America's Got Talent type of thing.
Talent show.
Yeah, talent show. My wife, you know, and this is before they did comedy. I found the place for Yoder because my wife was doing modeling back then. She was doing runway modeling. Ooh. And she was working for a hairstylist show where, you know, you went in there and they had to do like 4 or 5 different hairstyles. And when she was younger, her hair was very pliant and easily manipulated by the hairdressers, especially the pros. And so I got to see this place, and I said, what do you do with this place now that the TV studio has moved out? And they said, we just do these shows, and we do bowling banquets. And so I called up Yoder, and I told him to check this place out. And that's how it became a comedy club. And, you know, I don't know if you remember this or not, Andy, the stage was right in front of where the bar was. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. No.
Yeah,
no, was this Chaplin's East or Chaplin's West?
This was Chaplin's East.
Okay.
That's like the weirdest comedy club ever.
Which one was
that? If they had the stage by the bar and a picture of Hitler, I don't know what I would make of it. I don't know what.
It was very weird, and they didn't take any of the crystal balls down from when it was a disco.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we got them to turn the lights off, because the thing is, when they turn the stage lights on, all of a sudden I was there the first week it opened. It's flying on the crystal ball. I go, no, stop that.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't know how to do that. Yeah, I know how to do it. You get a ladder from the bank storage area.
Yeah.
And you shut it off.
We don't bring people in here until we turn that damn light off. Aim it toward the stage. So that's the only place that needs light is the stage. You don't need it on a crystal ball.
No, not at all. How could you possibly do a show there?
No.
It was actually
Chapel's West was actually pretty good.
Actually, it was. They had some great audiences though.
Yeah.
And it was
Chapel's West was good.
And what was really nice about Chaplin East is that tiered setting they had, where you had the people in front and then the people behind them are. Ann Arbor's got it now, but not as severe as Chaplin's had it. Chaplin's had it where like the fourth row was eye level with the comic. I mean, you were like really a stadium style slant on that thing, and I like that.
House of Comedy is kind of like that.
What's that?
House of Comedy is a bit like that. The new one.
Oh yeah, I've seen. Yeah, this is more severe than even the House of Comedy.
Really?
I mean, it was. Yeah, I do like the House of Comedy. I had seen the House of Comedy. I'd been there when it was a Second City.
Yep, it was.
They put a Second City theater in there, but I haven't been. I was there for the. Detroit Comedy Festival for some of their workshops they did, but I haven't been on that stage yet. I did do except for I did volunteer to go up, and when they did the artificial animation, what do they call that? Artificial intelligence, whatever, the mask that you
AI.
The AI. I did
AI.
Yeah, yeah, I did the AI on stage. That was kind of fun, actually. But a much younger audience.
It is, yeah.
A much younger audience that would actually like to watch a comic on their goggles rather than go to a live show. So,
wow,
these kids.
Yeah,
the goggle come. They just don't want to. They want to sit next to each other, but not actually talk to each other.
Oh, that's God forbid.
Well, those are my kids. My kids will sit at the dinner table and text to each other across the table to each other. God forbid what we hear what they're saying, you know.
Yeah, it's all encrypted. There we go. So wow, that's amazing. But I was in North Dakota. I started off in I was like in Fargo. I did a radio thing. As I was telling Mark, I used to do a 1 minute movie review, and for the drive time, it actually worked out pretty well. But you know, you can only do Jimmy Stewart so many times. You know, it's like,
was there a comedy club in Fargo?
There
was a place called the Cinema Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy I found out about this guy. He put an ad in the paper. He says, come to this bar and we're gonna have a comedy show. So I go to this comedy show. The guy name's Jim Brodigan. So I go to this bar. I was in North Dakota State. There was nobody in the place.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this guy, Jim Brodigan. He had a tuxedo on, a little thread hanging off it. You know, I
love it. I love it.
Is this for the comedy club? Is this where the comedy show is? Well, yeah, but as soon as it starts in 5 minutes, it's like, I guess you're the audience, you know?
Oh, wow.
He was a hypnotist, but he had like a lisp. So he was like a lisping hypnotist, but he was able to do it, man. I saw him. He worked at a place called the Cinema Lounge. Oh. It was like a predecessor to the Imagine Theater, which is you can have alcohol, right? And you go see the movie. But he would do a gig in the bar where he'd hypnotize people in the bar. Oh. Okay, like, how the heck can you do that? But he was able to do it.
That's amazing.
And he said, well, do you want to do comedy? I said, well, I need somebody who would like to open for me. So I never did comedy. So I said, okay, I'll do 5 minutes if I can. Put together 5 minutes. I got 2 laughs. And he said, okay, we'll keep working it. So he started to develop people for his opening bit. And then we started to work around, you know, we traveled like 5 hours to go to Minneapolis, to work an open mic, and then come back. We did 10-hour runs to do 5 minutes in Minneapolis.
You know? I tell you what, though, Andy, back when you were doing that, Minneapolis was hot. I went to Minneapolis. I worked for the Hanson brothers out of Minneapolis.
I that's where I got my work from. I got Hanson Brothers.
Yeah, Tom recently passed away, but I think his brother's still around. But I worked for them. But it took me. I went there in '82, and they were the first people to work me on the road outside of Detroit. And but I paid for that first trip. I did a Chicago '82. I went Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, Rochester, and Minneapolis, and did all anything I could get stage time at. And but
so I was like 88, 87, 88.
Yeah, this was 82 when I did that.
Came here through 92, and then went back out. Worked for them in the 92, 93, 94. So that was good. I had a very interesting experience. Go ahead.
They were good guys. They were good guys. They were good guys to work for. I mean, they always paid good. They'd always work. They would work a schedule for you, so it's kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be in Gary working for Yoder, and then down in Normal working for Holem. What do you got in it's only 6 or 7 hours, within 6 or 7 hours drive that I could do on these days off that I have. And they'd always find something for me. That was always nice.
Yeah.
It's back when people paid money for comedy.
Yeah. Well, I was only I was only featuring, but they hired me as a feature because I was always like, I was the only guy that wasn't doing dick jokes, you know? I do some impressions, no dick jokes. And so the opener would do his dick jokes. And then the headliner had his dick joke, so I was kind of like the cleanser in between, you know.
You were a little bit of a palate break.
Yeah,
exactly.
You were the sorbet that they would bring out before the main.
Exactly.
Let me get that dick taste out of your mouth for 10 minutes.
That's right, folks. Today we're gonna, at the dick taste. We're not gonna exchange the whole idea. We're gonna talk about something weird, okay?
Yeah. Vaginas.
Vaginas, that's right. I would call them vaginas. Like we'll call them hoo-hoos. You want to talk about hoo-hoos?
Vaginas are funny.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's do a couple of impressions for you, okay? All right.
Jimmy Stewart's vagina.
There we go. Jimmy Stewart getting a blowjob. Oh yeah, Mary. Okay. That was the best $2 I ever spent. Yeah. So that went a long way, I guess. You know. But no more John Wayne, no more Marlon Brando. No, can't do it anymore.
That's old history.
That's history, man.
Ned, did you get my note about last night's Unclub?
Yes, it was good, huh?
Yeah. Well, I was really surprised because I was kind of short on acts, and then everybody at the dojo said, yeah, we'll do it, except for Erica was sick, so she didn't show up for either of them, and Chris.
3 people declined, you said.
Yeah, 3 people declined, and they said, well, let's give me another week. Give me another week to work on this up. But Ken was refreshingly good for his first time, not only doing stand-up, but his first time on stage. I mean, I thought he did a great job. But his wife wouldn't go up. But that story continues. I love that story. Andy, I don't know if you know the story or not, but when the two of them are talking about getting divorced and asking their husbands for divorce, and my wife asked for divorce, that actually happened to them on New Year's Eve. And she asked for a divorce. His response was to buy them each the dojo workshop that we were having at the
to work it out. So basically comedy is therapy.
Yes,
it's right there.
Yes.
Is that what they're trying to do? Are they trying to save their marriage?
I don't know. You know what? I do not want to have any lawsuits, so I'm just going to teach them how to write comedy rather than try to do anything other than that. But if anything comes out of this that I can use as a selling point,
you know what they should do? They should do a duo. Like or Sonny and Cher. They should do a double.
Yeah.
That would be unbelievably funny.
Yeah, well, Susan and I have talked about doing the Bickersons, like doing an updated version of the Bickersons for a number of years now, because she's just now getting into stand-up, but she's been writing for a long time. So,
oh wow, okay.
Anyway, and Joe and Jason did their, and Andy was with me when we saw Joe and Susan was with me. We saw Joe and Jason do their sets at the Castle.
Yeah,
and huge difference when you're working to 50 to 60 people who paid money to see a show than it is to see you know, in front of a dozen comics that are just there because they're doing their time, you know.
Yeah.
I heard they both had good nights.
They did.
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
And they both
So wonderful.
And here's how good it was. Here's how good it was. Jason goes up to Bill and Joel afterwards and says, "I know I went over. I'm sorry." And they go, "That doesn't bother us. You were killing."
Yeah.
And so and so he goes, "Oh, this is so different than Roger in Ann Arbor."
That's for sure.
He goes, "I could be walking on water on the Ann Arbor stage, and if you go 30 seconds over, it's like
1 second over.
Yeah, you'll never work here again." You know? But then you know, it's how Ridley was an MC. Ridley did comedy when he was starting out. He was, you know, he had to cover for people that didn't show up sometimes. I mean, we're talking about the Wild West days of comedy when he was starting out back in the 70s, right? Roger never had to do that. His brother-in-law was Kirkland Teeples, who started the club, and he was just there when Kirkland died.
Who's Kirkland Teeples?
Kirkland Teeples was a comic from Detroit who had gone to New York to make his fame. He probably would have been out there about the same time you were.
I never heard the name.
Kirkland, anyway, well, he didn't make it past 1989, I think, is when he passed away. But by 89, he had a very popular club in what was at that time called the Main Street Comedy Showcase. After they moved it from Main Street, they changed it to the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase. But it used to be at the Heidelberg, where Vivian has her room now. That used to be the Comedy Showcase. Roger was the bartender. Carl, Roger, Kirkland. I'm trying to think of who else was there. I run into all those guys every once in a while. And of course, Roger's still there running the club, but it wasn't his to have until his brother-in-law died. Roger was Kirkland's brother-in-law.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I wonder what his connection was.
Yeah. Before that, he was selling dope at his dad's shop down in River Rouge or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. There's so many great stories. I love comedy stories.
Yeah, it's like how it got started. You know, it's just all the different types of stuff that took place. So
I started to tell you when I did Stan's on Sunday, I met Stan.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And I said, "How did you get started?" He said, I decided I retired and I wanted to open a club. And I said, "Retired from what?" I was a plumber.
Yep.
And I said, so he's never been in showbiz. And I said, "What was this place before you bought it?" He said, "It was an Eagles.
Yeah.
A
lodge."
That was my stepfather's Eagles area.
Really?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got together with Mike Green on that. So I was like, you know.
Yeah.
Mike Green told when they hired me, Mike Green told me that Stan goes, "You got to get this guy. I saw him at the castle, and then he didn't know my name, so he starts doing my bits." And Stan, Mike goes, "Oh, you want Mark Sweetman?" He goes, "Yeah, hire him." You know, so I got known for my bits.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. That is a good thing. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember when Facebook came out. I would always, whenever I would try to friend somebody, because some of these people I hadn't seen in 20 years, I would like give a little blurb in a private message who I was. And Larry Miller, the now actor at that time comic, he writes,
Larry Miller.
He writes back. He goes, "Are you the guy who did the bit about his 2-year-old son playing with the box fan on the floor?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "And you stretched it out for about 8 minutes?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "One of the best bits they ever had at the Improv." I go, "Oh my God." I'm like, oh, be still my heart. That's Larry Miller giving me kudos. Ooh.
That's really good.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Oh, yeah. He was, there were a lot of guys that were like pretty regular when I was, for the 5 years that I was out there, ran into, you must know Leah Krinsky.
I sure do.
Yeah. Yeah. She was out there, and her friend Bernadette Luckett.
I know both.
And Jeffrey Joseph. Do you know Jeffrey?
Oh, I love Jeff Joseph. Yeah. Very funny guy.
And John Mulrooney and Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
And I list all these names, and then I say Judd Apatow, like everybody, the name everybody would recognize, and he's like fifth down on the list of the people.
But I never knew him as a comic, but I certainly know who he knows.
Yeah.
We had George, the Mexican fellow,
George Lopez.
George Lopez was on, because I was at Comic Strip Live. So all the people you mentioned, I know from Comic Strip Live.
Oh, okay. Well, I know George. I met my first trip out there back in 1983, 84, something like that. He booked a place called the Deli Smoker out in Sherman Oaks. And everybody knew George. And George, Bob Zaney, and Jeff Wayne were the three comics that didn't need to book rooms. Oh, and Sandy Hackett, Buddy Hackett's son. Those four comics didn't need to book rooms because they were getting gigs well enough on their own. And Michael Rappaport too. Yes. Michael Rappaport's his mom and his stepdad were Mark and Joanne over at the Improv. So
Mark Lano
and Joanne Astro.
Oh, really?
That is, you've heard of Michael Rappaport, the actor.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And I think he did a stand-up stitch in the last 6 months at Ridley's.
He did something recently along those lines.
Yeah. I didn't know he was doing that anymore. He doesn't really need to. I mean, he's got he's
been in some really good movies.
He's got a good acting resume. Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, all those guys booked rooms and paid. I loved it. Loved the rooms and paid. And then there were other people out there that David Gladstone. A lot of people didn't know this, but David Gladstone, I was introduced to him by Mike Binder. And I'm working for him. I worked for him like 3 or 4 times. He did a lot of Orange County stuff. Then I found out it was Ridley's wife's brother. That was Ridley's brother-in-law. His first wife. They've since divorced. But I mean, I thought I was doing well here. You're just Ridley's friend,
I want to talk to Billy.
Exactly.
If the money guy's named Billy, it's probably crooked. I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Well, that was Chaplin's. That was Chaplin's. Billy was the guy that we went through 4 doors to get our money, our cash, and the thing is, it was always, it was never crisp dollar bills. Like you'd expect.
Of course not.
You'd expect anybody that went to the bank and got just stacks and stacks of 20s would be like the stuff that the bank would give you. No, this came from somewhere else besides a bank.
Everything was sweaty. There's little blood stains on it, and
Parmesan cheese. That guy never saw the inside of a bank.
Buzz and Bobby are both gone. Billy's the only one left from that crew.
Wow.
Buzz passed away sometime. He was old. He was much older. He didn't expect him to be around still, but Bobby died very young. Bobby was still like in his 50s when he passed away.
He was the one that worked the west side, right?
Yes. Yep. Well, he started off.
Where were the east and where was the west?
East was on Groesbeck and 14 Mile.
Right.
In Fraser. And west was at Telegraph and 6 Mile. If you go by there now, it's a jazz club.
Shoot, I know that area. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that was great for me because when I lived in Detroit before I moved to LA, I lived at Grand River and Telegraph, which was basically a 3/4 of a mile north of there. Well, and the castle at that time, back when Chaplin's was at 6 in Telegraph, the castle was at 9 in Telegraph. So I mean that made for very nice.
That's easy.
Scooting around and you got to see people.
Yeah. Well, Joey's is around there too. So Chaplin's West and Joey's are relatively competing against each other. So
what about B's Comedy Kitchen? I remember that.
Oh God.
I never went to it. I always wanted to, and I never did.
Never performed there? Did you perform there, Mark, didn't you?
They were the first people to headline me.
Got it.
I got the headline there in 84.
My experience there, you probably know it better than I do. My experience there, I was just an opening bit, but she would bring people in no matter what time during the first show. So you get a person in at the end of the first show, gone.
And it was basically a used cars salesman's pricing for whoever was coming in. If somebody got dropped off by a limo, everybody paid $30 to get in out of that limo.
Got it.
But if somebody rode up on bikes, what do you got? $2? Come on in. That type of thing.
But you always heard she was always talking on the phone in the back. He always heard her talking on the phone in the back.
And who was this
Screaming
woman?
at somebody.
B. Evans, her husband owned a diner. A diner's a sort of playing it down a little bit. It was a pretty well-known lunch restaurant in the shadow of the Renaissance Center. It was between Bricktown. It was I guess the south part of Bricktown, but not quite to the Renaissance. It was on Larned. That's only a block north of
But
Jefferson.
the thing Ned, about the show is that so they came in, she'd pay them or she'd give you a ticket at the last minute, and so the audience in the second show would disappear at the point they came in.
Yeah, like
So
we.
They would
be
peel off.
on a loop.
It was
Yeah,
like it was like a drive-in. It was like you were at a drive-in where you'd always go out where you came in, you know.
Exactly. So in the middle of like a certain piece, the audience would just get up and leave. So the audience in the second show is constantly leaving. You know,
That's
amazing.
I think but that helped because when they were really hot, they needed those seats. They needed people to leave so that they could sell more seats.
They wanted turnover, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, the food was good, the service was good. They finally moved the stage away from the bar because remember, everybody that went back to LA or New York, or we booked a lot of comics from Boston at Bees too. Everyone that went back, they talked about the 80-year-old woman that fell asleep at the foot of the stage. She'd go to the end of the bar, and she didn't think anybody saw her, but she'd sit down and she'd be like, all of a sudden you see her head start to droop, And as soon as it's an 80-year-old woman that's worked, and especially if it was a Friday, because she's worked all day. It was a lunch and dinner place until it became, and then at night it became a comedy club. Other than that, it was still a restaurant that served people that worked downtown. There was a law school right a block away. Blue Cross Blue Shield had their headquarters right there. The Renaissance Center was there. Now GM wasn't there yet, but still that was a huge office building. And so they did a great lunch and dinner business. And her nephew convinced her to keep it open, and she could sell more drinks. And they pretty much limited it to easy food, finger food at night. They didn't do tableware type stuff. It would always be like fries and burgers and stuff like that. And convinced her to open it up. He would take the cover and pay the comics, like most clubs started out back in the early 80s. And
but she didn't have any kind of showbiz background. She just...
Absolutely none. She was all, in fact, she didn't even have restaurant business, but her son, her husband passed away. It was his club. They called it the Evans 500 Club. It was just a diner, it was just a restaurant, right? And so she goes, well, I don't want to sell it. It's making a lot of money. And so she got family that also worked in the business. I think they were Lebanese or something or Syrian or something like that. Something, I mean, you wouldn't tell. I mean, they all spoke with no accents because they're like third generation. But of the families that, there would be people in their family, and they'd bring people from overseas who could work at the restaurant and that type of thing. So she kept it going. But at the end there, she'd get done with what she thought was being done, which basically was chewing out the waitresses, which she did loudly enough so everybody could hear while the show was going on. And then she would sit down and you see her head start to droop, And there were some comics that were just great at hassling her, Who was the one guy that we had in there? Nelson, Bobby Nelson. Remember Bob Nelson?
Oh, yes.
Bob Nelson would fool with her. The amazing Jonathan would
brilliant
dick around with her. Who else did we have in there? That
Downtown Tony Brown.
Downtown Tony Brown. Yeah. Oh, Stephen Wright came in a couple of times, but he wouldn't do anything with her. That wasn't part of his character. He didn't.
I wouldn't think so. No.
He just would look down at her. But what he would do that slow look down. and then look back at the crowd. In other words, his look down directed everyone's attention to this woman going,
yes. That would be funny.
That was funny.
Would work.
But it just had the place had such lore that I really it's almost better that they ripped it down because every time I drove by it after it closed, I had a little tear in my eye because the place had such great lore, great stories. Tim, and it was a great room because the police looked the other way after 2:00 because the drinking is supposed to end at 2:00. But if we still had a crowd there, they wanted to keep serving. And so the police said, we like this activity here because then it's an area where we don't have to patrol because it's kind of patrol. This all the people here kind of patrols itself. The people that are, and now we can worry about other areas of downtown where we do have trouble with people roaming the streets and stuff like that. People pretty much save themselves, and so they kind of looked the other, which meant now that we had Holly, Ridley's, basically 3 Chaplins, 2 Joeys, Ann Arbor. So we had a lot of rooms. We had a lot of headliners, and we all ended up down at B's because everybody else's show ended at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were going until 3 or 4 sometimes because the police looked the other way. So that, I mean, and that added to the lore, of course.
What a great time to be a comedian.
It was. And I always tell the young kids, I am not going to apologize for when I was born, but sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you didn't get to live it, but it was great.
It was
great. And then you always got some kid going, did you ever do blow off a stripper's ass? I go, no, but I saw it, so
I saw it happen.
I saw it happen. I was
the stripper. So yeah.
I saw a comic get paid with cocaine.
Yes.
There we go. Yes.
Well, Johnny Cochran was famous. Johnny Cochran, listen to me. His name was John Cochran, not the Johnny Cochran, but the guy that owned the club in Columbus, and he also had one down in Tampa. His name was John Cochran, and he used to pay comics in cocaine. Ollie Joe would always get his, sometimes get his pay. There's a great Ollie Joe story. Rich Scheidner probably tells it better than anybody, and it's gone around so much. Sometimes it's Atlanta, sometimes it's Pittsburgh, but it doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter. The story is. The hotel where they had put up Ollie Joe calls the club owner on Thursday. And this is when we were doing shows Tuesday through Sunday night, and Monday was only them. So it's Thursday. He's only done 2 shows, and the hotel calls and goes, "Yeah, he's run an incidental bill up $3,500." And the club owner says, "All right, I'll talk to him." And Ollie Joe comes in that night and he goes, "Hey, the hotel called. They said you run an incidental bill up $3,500. And Ollie Joe goes, "You got to live." Oh, great story.
Comics.
That's
anyway.
fun.
We're 12 minutes past our normal closing time, so
that's why I'm getting sleepy.
Yeah, we're gonna call it a night. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, and then next Monday.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, I think so.
And Sam wasn't here tonight. He already let me know he's going to a play tonight. So, and then Jason said he would come by. Oh, and Jason, before we go, I want to, because I won't remember this next week. Jason, after that great set at the Castle, right? Both he and Joe are on the show at the End Club. Joe does a great set at the End Club, so he takes what he got out of the Castle and that kind of built him up, and he comes in to the Unclub and does just as well. Jason gets up there and eats it. Just eats it.
He didn't do any humor before he started to attack the audience. It's like he didn't do a joke and he attacked the audience. It's like, oh wow, okay.
It's completely unpredictable. It makes no sense.
You can't do, and so I get up on stage afterwards. I go, Jason, you wanted to learn the business, and I think you're learning it the way the rest of us did. Is you can't expect your best show to be your best show every time. You're going to, it's going to pull you down. You're going to come back. You're going to have better shows. But this is going to happen again. If all you people, what Jason did, what you saw Jason
these people here don't give a shit about how you did at the Castle.
Exactly. So
whenever I have a really bad set, I try to do somewhere else the same night so I can leave on a high note.
That's why
sometimes it doesn't.
That's why we saw so many acts down at B's. Why we saw so many headliners, even though they weren't working there, they would come by and either they were doing so well. Rich Jenny would come down there because Rich Jenny was always adding on to his bits each night. And if he did 2 or 3 shows at the Castle and was still tweaking his bit, he might come by for a 4th set down at B's just to try that again. And he'd say, "Hey, I only need 6 minutes. Just give me 6 minutes, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Steve, the doorman, was always like, "All right,
Mm-hmm.
these guys say you're funny, okay."
He was funny.
Yeah,
That is a
God.
good one.
he was amazing.
That-
All right, well, I'll see you guys.
Off of it.
You know
Thank
what?
you, gentlemen.
All right. See ya.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna play us out here. Let me see if I can get my music back up here. See how that sounds.
Yeah, you got your music.
Yeah, there we go.
Beautiful.
I'm getting much better at this.
Yeah.
All right, hey, everybody. We're everybody who's not one of these guys. We're here every Monday night at 8 o'clock. We talk about, well, you saw what we talk about. We talk about comedy. We talk about what we did, what we're doing now. If anything comes up, I will try to get Glenn on the show to tell us his great Detroit mob running the comedy club story. Got other people that have stories like that. We'll try to get them on. If you know anybody, if you want to get on the show, you know how to get in touch with us. It's on the Mark Sweetman YouTube page. It's on the Detroit Comedians and Comedy Fans Facebook page and Michigan Comedy Lovers Facebook page. Not going to put them on any more than that because that's enough. You'll be able to find it through there. And we'll see everybody next Monday at 8 o'clock. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right. So, Mark,
Yeah,
you're still live.
I know. We're getting there. We're getting off.